Good morning, Trainiacs! We lifting on this endurance adventure today. Oh yeah! So I'm sure I've told you over the last, well, I don't know, maybe 2 years. If you're new here, I am big into heavy strength. Like once a week, away from when you're doing your races, really good for improving efficiency. See the amount of energy that it takes to swim, bike, run. Heavy strength ends up reducing the amount of energy that it takes you. I've shown off and shared this heavy hex bar deadlift routine that I've done a whole bunch of times, so we're not gonna rehash it. At the end of the video, I'll link to a video about how to do this, and you can go to, I think we'll put it up, we gotta put it up down here. I think it's new website. Instead of triathlontaren.com, you can go to mymotive.com, the new website that we just launched, which is going to take over triathlontaren.com. So mymotive.com/off-season strength to download this for free if you want. So I've been doing this hex bar deadlift routine that I call the Trainiac secret sauce, and it was all good. I was really making some improvements. I think I ended up deadlifting like 4 times 335. It was good. I was feeling stable vertically when I would pound down running, and especially in the snow out here where there's a lot of side to side movement, I still felt strong and put together. And then I ended up trying to go to some quarter squats, just the top range of the squat, so you can load up heavy weight and not really get super deep down into the squat where you start risking injury, because I know a lot of the strength people out there will say you got to do the full range of motion, but squats just don't feel good to me. And your strength way down low is very different than your strength way up high. And if the requirement to build efficiency is to load up with heavy strength, I'm not going to load up with heavy weights where my strength down here is not very good. I got to work on that top quarter squat because that's what's much more similar to the running motion. Anyway, that's what's been up. I'm going to do a strength workout, but afterwards, I'm going to walk you through everything that we've built up here that we have created to give us a home gym that is not lacking whatsoever in strength equipment from what you'd want at a commercial gym. Some of it is really damn expensive, like the squat rack here, not necessary. There's a lot of smaller things that I use much more frequently that you can get as good a strength workout as what you get at a gym for a grand total of a few $100s. So I'll kind of just go through everything that we've done here with prices, with recommendations, and you can decide what you want. Oh, this feels awful.
3, 2, 1, done.
Oh, done. Oh, let me get my Jeff Goldblum on. So after 2 years, I've still got to do this disclaimer that I dropped the weight on the deadlifts because I want to focus on the concentric as opposed to the eccentric. There's strength in both, but the eccentric, the lowering, is where you get more muscle tearing, so it's harder to run tomorrow, and that's where you end up building more muscle fibers, building bigger muscles. And actually what I want to do is not build extra muscle fibers. I want to get stronger without building extra mass. So you got to improve strength to weight ratio. And I put on a weightlifting belt for safety. I have a bad back. I will trade perfect for safety any day. All right, time for some overnight oats. We'll come back and I'll run you through all of that. Okay, I have laid out here the main things that I've got, actually basically everything that I've got. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spend just 30 seconds on each of them with what I use it for, and I'll try to go in order of the most beneficial and versatile to the least beneficial. I would say a must for setting up your home setup with strength equipment is a kettlebell. And the reason for that is that a kettlebell is really good for cardiovascular, endurance-specific strength. You can work on muscular endurance by doing like kettlebell swings for 5 to 10 minutes. You can also do Tabata workouts where for 30 seconds you're going like 20 seconds on, 10 off, 20 on, 10 off, or 40 on, 20 off. Things like that, where you're getting your heart rate up and you're working on cardio and muscular endurance while you're also working on strength. So, kettlebell. I used a 25-pound one to get started with. NTK used a 10-pound. The next most beneficial thing, it isn't the stability ball, however, that's pretty close. It's Therabands like this. Like we have all different kinds of Therabands. We got really long Therabands so that I can do stuff like this, like really coordinated movements like that. But then, more than anything, you can use these narrow Therabands for things like, well, actually, like, let's be serious. You can load up tension and raise it up so that you're working out the thoracic spine. You can wrap it around your knees and your ankles to do stability work for your glute med. This is like for 10 or 20 bucks, you can load yourself up on all the Therabands you'll ever need. And that is really, really important for building stability for triathlon and endurance training. We've literally got just a pile of them here. There's more in there. We got a lot. Next thing that I would absolutely recommend is a foam roller. Foam roller isn't new to a lot of people, but the reason that I'm putting it so high up in the priority list is because it's really important to keep all of your tissue happy. Without happy tissue, you are likely going to end up developing an injury. So the best thing to do is get yourself any sort of foam roller and roll on any areas like side of the leg, inside of the thigh, glute med, your side bum, your lats, and do that a few times a week after a workout to just help loosen everything up. Stay on something that hurts a little bit until the pain dissipates by about 50% or 15 seconds, whichever comes first. Cheap and very effective for staying healthy. Now comes the stability ball. Stability ball is going to be very beneficial for a lot of stability movements, things that you would expect a stability ball to do. Duh. Now, as a triathlete, if we're not stable, if our body wants to move side to side, if it doesn't have the stability to stay firm in the core, basically from your nipples down to like your mid thighs, and have that connection across, down the side, along the back, every single pedal stroke that you take, every single step that you take, every single stroke that you take in the pool is all going to be leaking energy. And in addition to that, there's going to be tiny little vibrations. That leak of the energy leads to slower times. Those vibrations lead to injury. So stability ball, really, really important. Next thing, and this will be an unexpected tool high up in the list for you. Why I put this high up in the list is because you need a little bit of weight. You need to load your structure. And this is an Onnit 10-pound steel club. And the reason that I like this is because you can do things that are very, very simple and make it easier and harder by where you grip on the club. So here, seems fairly light. Here, if I'm doing something and having to stabilize it there, it is tremendously heavy. Having something like this allows you to do things like twisting. It allows you to do squats with this while adding a little bit of load and stability to one side or the other without creating a huge amount of stress on the body, because it's 10 pounds. That's all it is. And it's a fairly easy way to become really, really versatile with your movements. The downside to this is that it's not very common. So you're gonna have to find workouts online or on the Onnit website to understand how to use this best, but you can get a lot out of it. Now, next in line related to that, same purpose, same thing. Basically, I won't talk about it a lot. An off balance, off center thing. It's a little bit less versatile than the steel mace. And you can also get it from On It, but same thing. You've got to understand how to use this. These gymnastics rings are the substitute that I ended up purchasing in place of a TRX. Just with all of the renovations that we've had all around here, I haven't had the time to put these up because I didn't know where they were going to go. But the combination of things like the kettlebell collection that we've got back here and stability work with something like gymnastics rings or TRX, really, really good combination. That with those two things alone, you can keep yourself busy for years. Plus, gymnastics rings also looks really cool on Instagram if you get good at them. I hope to one day. Next and last thing that I would say is critical that you've got to get is a yoga mat. Now, you might say, hey, like I'm a triathlete, why do I need a yoga mat? Well, you don't really need a yoga mat, which is why it's a little bit further into the video here, but it's a very inexpensive way to make yoga a little bit easier to do. Personally, I've been doing yoga every single morning in place of my morning 10-minute meditation. I've been doing a morning 10-minute yoga session that is more meditative, like very, very chill yin yoga. And having a yoga mat is like incentive to be able to do it. Instead of lying on a cold floor, I'm on a yoga mat. It's pretty inexpensive, and for as good as yoga makes me feel, I think that this is something that everyone should incorporate. Finally, I'll share with you all the things that I would say are nice to haves but not need to haves. A jump box, I have a foam jump box here that I find really beneficial, but you don't really need to have it. If you've got a deck, if you have a step, if you have anything that you can hop up on, you're gonna be fine without that. This is a wobble board. This is something that I step on and wobble from side to side, and it helps me keep my foot dexterity and strength up. The ankle needs to be strong and it needs to be limber, so I use the wobble board for about 30 seconds every single morning for that. A medicine ball you might have thought would be a little bit more critical, but I rarely use it. I'll use it to add a little bit of load to some of those side twists that you saw me doing earlier today, but I tend actually not to use this too much because there's just not a huge amount of versatility to it. So get it if you want. And then some things that are specific to me. I've got some fat grips that these go on that lifting bar that I've got, and it really just, it makes it wider so that I can work on my finger and forearm strength. That's more so for golfing, but a little bit, like 10% to do with swimming, having a nice purchase on the water, but like really a luxury, not a requirement. This is like a little lacrosse ball that is fused together. What I do with this is I put this on my back and then lie down on it, kind of right around there, and then I do something called the Travolta peanuts. So peanut, John Travolta, go like this, and it ends up loosening up all of the joints in the spine. And I have, well, just about every triathlete has really, really stiff thoracic mobility. We have a hard time turning and bending, so this helps break that up. What I'm sure you might be wondering about, however, is what about this rack? Well, this is a rack that I just use a little bit for hanging to stretch out the upper torso, and I'll use the hex bar that came with this rack for hex bar deadlifts. And I don't use this a ton. I use this very, very minimally. More than anything, it was just a rack to mount all of the weights for the hex bar deadlift. But this is not something that I would suggest that you get. For the times of the year, off-season, base building season, Northern Hemisphere people, we're talking from like November to February. If you really want to start lifting heavy weights, instead of buying $1,000 to $2,000 worth of a weight set, go to the gym and you're going to be much better off and have much more access to equipment. For the majority of your strength training, I would stick to kettlebells because it's going to be way more versatile. For about an $80 kettlebell, you can be kept busy for 3 or 4 months. So that's everything, Trainiacs. I will put a link in the description below to anything that we talked about here. Some of those that you click through, it will be an affiliate link, so it will help us out. We'll get a few pennies if you purchase anything, but if you don't, that's okay too. If you aren't already subscribed and you want triathlon and endurance training content, as always, hit the subscribe button below, and hopefully you enjoy getting your home strength setup set up. Later, Trainiacs.